Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new Redefining Security podcast. Have you ever thought that we are selling cybersecurity insincerely, buying it indiscriminately, and deploying it ineffectively? Perhaps we are. So let's look at how we can organize a successful InfoSec program that integrates people, process, technology, and culture to drive growth and protect business value. Knowledge is power, now more than ever. HITRUST is a leading data protection standards development and certification organization that strives to safeguard sensitive information and manage information risk for global organizations across all industries and throughout the third-party supply chain. Learn more at hightrustalliance.net.
Imperva is the cybersecurity leader whose mission is to protect data and all paths to it with a suite of integrated application and data security solutions. Learn more at imperva.com.
And here we are for another Redefining Cybersecurity episode here on ITSP Magazine. You're very welcome. I am Sean Martin, your host, and my co-founder was going to join me for this, but he ran off the rails. I'm joking, but Marco and I have talked a lot about maritime security and aerospace security and autonomous car security, and we've heard bits and pieces of rail security, or the lack thereof, over the years, but we've not had an episode about this topic yet. And a request came through, or a suggestion came through to talk about rail security, and I said, let's do it. And Amir Levintal, thanks for joining. Thanks for putting that submission through, and excited to have this chat with you.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm excited as well to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah, and I suspect I'm going to learn a lot, because I have a very dangerous view of what's involved in the railway system. Very high level is that there's rail for cargo, rail for transport, and then that might be nationwide in different countries, and then you have regional systems as well for subways and other things like that. And some are sophisticated, some are not. I'm thinking the not ones being the cable cars in San Francisco, for example. Not too much technological sophistication there, but others, I presume, are even more sophisticated in ways most of us can't think of. And I'm excited to get into all of this. Before we do, though, Amir, a bit about yourself, your role, and why this topic.
Sure. So my name is Amir, as you mentioned. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Silus. Prior to that, my background is from the Israeli military service. I served for 22 years in the main technological unit, elite technological unit of the intelligence corps in Israel, and I led the cybersecurity team there. So me, and together with my co-founder and most of the people in the company, came with vast experience in cybersecurity. And at Silus, we are doing cybersecurity only for the rail industry. And the reason why we chose this topic to deal with is that when I retired from the military service in 2017, I spoke with many people from this industry, and we experienced that this industry overgone a huge digitalization process over the years, and trains became autonomous. And when we say autonomous in trains, you mentioned before the automotive industry. We all speak about this industry, that it will become autonomous in a few years. Trains are already there. And the main difference between these systems is that on the car you can put some sensors that can be effective in the environment for hundreds of meters, and all the decisions are being made by the car. In the rail industry, it's not possible to do that because of the braking length of the trains. It's about 1 kilometer, or translation to miles. We speak. I'm from Israel, of
Yes,
course.
of course, yeah.
And sensors are not relevant there. So the way to manage these trains is by using wireless communication and control them through the center. So the operational control center control the trains, and it's obvious why it exposed the trains to a new attack surface. Similar to that, also threat actors can use this wireless communication and control the trains. And you might ask yourself why I don't know that most of the trains are now autonomous. And the reason for that is that the rail industry was concerned about the people to know that the trains became autonomous because they were afraid of that people won't use the trains. So it's not common knowledge that trains, even if there is a driver, sometimes he doesn't do anything and he's there only because of some other reasons of
They're
making
there to
sure.
feed the coal into the thing. Well, let's so many places to go with this already. Well, actually, I want to go back a second because this is a slightly off topic, but I'm interested in this. Maybe to set the stage in your thought, because there are companies that build security solutions, and those solutions are very abstract, right? They do something specific, but try to do it for everybody. And I've seen a movement to have ICS specific protections and maybe all the stuff that goes with it, risk and detection, protection, response capabilities specific to ICS. And I'm wondering your position to take even more specific railways. And my question is, why the value of being so specific? Do we need more of that in the industry for other areas? And why is that? And my sense is that it's because there are specific systems and communication frameworks, and I'm not going to sound intelligent here, but things that are different in the railway world that separate it from autonomous cars or from aerospace and things like that.
Yes. Okay, it's a great question. And let's go back 15, 20 years ago, where all the solutions were like firewalls, antiviruses, unidirectional gateways, the regular IT solutions that were these security measures fit all the IT environment. But then, as you mentioned, there is the ICS environment, which is different from the IT environment because of many reasons, but part of the important ones are, one, it uses different technologies like SCADA technologies and other OT technologies that one can attack, and it's not a regular IT environment, so with different attack vectors and vulnerabilities. And the second thing is that there are some needs for understanding in operations, because in the IT environment, the way to secure is whenever there is a new vulnerability that is found, you update the system and you are secure. In OT environment, operational environment, you cannot do that because in operations usually, if everything works, don't touch, and if there is a vulnerability but nothing happened, so the way of working is not to make updates. So there is a dilemma there of if you want to update or you want to continue operations. Usually they continue the operations. So this narrowed down narrowed down the market of the IT cybersecurity into different OT verticals. When the market became more mature, now in recent years, the market became more mature than that, and specific technologies in medical environment, automotive environment, started to become vulnerable, or attackers found vulnerabilities and started to attack those systems. And the next level of maturity the next level of attack vectors needs to have next level of security measures. And these security measures are vertical specific. So we decided to do it in rail, but there are a lot of other verticals and a lot of other technologies that are vertical specific and should be protected. And it's also same here. It's different technologies. So the rail technologies are totally different than other ICS systems. Just as an example, trains are a kind of moving data center. So it's a data center that is moving between stations and reconnect every station. So you need different technology for that. But there are also other reasons why the technology is different, and also the way of operations, the business logic of operating such a system is different. So, for example, safety is the top priority for rail. So they have fail-safe mechanism that whenever something is going wrong, the train will stop. You need to, in order to provide the best solution for this industry, you need to understand the business logic and to refer to that with your solution. It's a long answer, but I hope that it answers.
That's perfect and raises many more questions for me. Yeah, just that whole visual of it's a data center moving between stations. Because when we talked about maritime, the view we got was there's this world of boats, some commercial, some non-commercial, but they're all kind of controlled through satellites and sat nav, and there are systems that define what's on the ship, who's on the ship, where it's headed, what its objective is, where it is at the moment. And I'm wondering, is there something similar for the train systems? And my burning question is, does it look different between cargo systems and nationwide passenger systems versus like regional subway systems, where some of those above ground ones you might leverage sat nav technologies, where the underground ones not going to help too much probably. So maybe, I guess my question is, can you paint a picture visually for us of the infrastructure that kind of controls these trains? What's on the train, what's at the rails, what's in the sky, what's at the stations?
Yes, sure. I'll try to simplify that because it's really these are really sophisticated systems. So, but let's take some examples. Or let's talk first about the principles, and then I'll give some examples. The principles are that there is the infrastructure that control the routes. So this is called the system called signaling, and the rolling stock that are going over the tracks. The signaling is being controlled from the control center. So there is usually per area or per zone control center that control in this region. It could be part of a country or a whole country if the country is small, and control all the switches on the track or the point machine that move the train, that can move the train from one track to the other. Okay, So this is the signaling system, and it's being controlled by the center. Traditionally, the drivers weren't responsible for the signaling, so they were responsible only to increase the speed, decrease the speed, or stop the train, and the route was decided by the center. And if you want to go from point A to point B and there is a switch in between, someone from the control center will make sure that the switch is on the right state for you to go from point A to point D, and the driver is not involved there. When the autonomous trains or the remote controlled train, let's say, started to be presented, there started to be integration between the responsibility of the driver that increases speed, decreases speed, and stop the train, and the signaling system. So they became to be one entity, and as I mentioned before, it started to be controlled from the center. So these are the basic principles.
And quickly, so you mentioned earlier, and then I'll let you continue with the visual diagram. But you said safety is the most important thing. I would imagine investment in this is also for operational efficiency. Yeah. I don't know. They use it to. What are some of the other business objectives beyond safety?
Beyond safety, yeah. So safety is the top priority. Then efficiency or service availability. Let's say the trains will come on time and will be available. This is the second one that is in the importance. And then there are other things that when we speak about cybersecurity, so keeping the brand and passenger in terms, if it's passenger, so passenger experience, so you know that there are Wi-Fi and some other features for the commuters to use. These are the main ones in terms of priority for rate.
Interesting. Yeah, the comfort of the passenger.
Yeah, okay. because the competitive landscape. There are a lot of other modes of transportation, and people in most of the cases can have the ability to choose between, for example, between New York and Washington, you can use a train, you can use an airplane, and usually you choose according to the ability to predict the time to be on time, but also in terms of if it's comfortable or not, and you assume, I believe that you assume usually that trains are safe and airplanes are also safe. You don't calculate that, but once there is an event in each of them, and unfortunately we had a terror event in MTA, but in any of them, it usually reduces the number of people in one mode of transportation and move them to the other mode of transportation. And this is the reason inherently safety is super important, but also it impacts the business highly impact the business.
Yeah, we'll touch on some of that, maybe some examples, cyber driven as well. Yeah. Obviously the MTA one, that's recent in our minds. First thing that came to mind with the cameras was the camera disablement cyber issue. It doesn't appear to be, based on my layman's understanding, but first thing that came to mind for sure. So back to the visual diagram of the infrastructure. So if you keep going.
So we spoke about signaling. We spoke about rolling stock. We spoke about the convergence between signaling and rolling stock over the years. And now there are the urban metro systems are usually, not always, but usually each line is separate from the other line. So if we speak, for example, about RATP in Paris, it's the main metro in Paris, in France. you have 14 lines, and they are separate one each other. So there are not switches on the track. Each one is in different level, underground, most of them, but in different levels, so there are no switches between. This is usually how metro is being implemented. It's not necessarily in some other places, it's not like that, but most of the metros look like that. The mainline system, so this is passenger. The mainline system usually is built with switches and interlocking, so controlling those switches and the ability to move between one track to the other, and then the system becomes more complicated. And this system is very similar to the freight or cargo, as you mentioned, in terms of way of managing that. The business objectives sometimes are different, but the way of managing is similar. So, for example, just to give two examples, maybe, if we speak about a freight line that move goods that have, you should use them, or you should move them between point A to point B, which could be hundreds of kilometers, up to 24 hours, because afterwards it will not be fresh, or not be, if it's these are fruits or vegetables or even meat. You need up to 24 hours. So there is a business need for time frame that the good will be on the other side. So this is the business need. In passenger, it's more important that you'll be in every station on time. In freight, it's less important. It's if you are 5 minutes before or after, it's not so important. In passenger, it's important. So there are some differences in terms of how they manage the line, or what are the business objectives. But in terms of technology, it's very similar.
Nice. And what about, because when we talked about airplanes, it's not just the plane, right? So you talked about the trains moving between stations. When we looked at the airport model, the actual airport looks like a city, right? And when we're talking about passenger trains, they're maybe not as, I don't want to offend anybody, maybe not as sophisticated as an airport terminal. Maybe some are. I don't know. The Central Station in New York probably has a lot of things connected there. How does that play into the rail system as well? What information? Because you said it's a data center that I'll use the word docks into the station. Are they making connections there? Are they kind of monitoring? Well, most of the passengers are in the area or have checked in. Or what kind of information and systems are connected between those two things, the train itself and the station?
Yeah, so it depends on how you, from what angle you look at this system, the rail system. If you look from the operational point of view, so there is a handover between stations of when controlling the trains in terms of the it's called movement authority, the speed of the train. So every moment, every station, or not necessarily stations, but every few kilometers, there is another entity that takes the responsibility on controlling the train. So this is from the operation point of view. But there are also other things that are being done there. So, for example, there is the passenger Wi-Fi that usually will get the data from the cellular, the public cellular internet connection, but not necessarily. Sometimes it depends. Again, it depends. There are sometimes, a lot of cases where there is specific infrastructure for that, for the usage of the trains. There is the maintenance of the trains. So when we think about trains, usually we think about being on the coach and or we're being on the rail car, but practically these trains are moving 24/7 and they need a lot of maintenance. So there are some channels to control the trains and to monitor them, to provide preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance through wireless communication. So this kind of information is going from the train to the station and to monitor that. The video card, the CCTVs are being sent to the stations, and a lot of other information is being transferred from and to the trains.
And I know some passenger systems, they like in the trying to remember which one does which. Maybe some lines do different things, but I think in Paris, some doors open automatically. Otherwise, you have to press a button. In New York, you have to lift the lever. Some of them open automatically.
Yeah.
Is that controlled? Must be controlled by a system, or is that a just purely mechanical thing?
Yeah, so it evolved over time. There are, so for example, line 1 in Paris, it's fully automated, so without the driver at all. And then the train should stop in the specific place where it should stop with sensors and so on. And then the doors should be opened automatically. So there is a communication between the train to the wayside, to the station itself, and of course to the control center. All of these things are automated and are based on high-end technology. Some of that is, we don't speak as of now still about cybersecurity, but I believe that the audience understand that the more the technology, the system is sophisticated, the attack vector, the attack surface is broader.
Yeah, and I think just the more systems, the more sensors, the more data, the more complex, right? So I think, I think I have a decent view. I'm sure there's much more involved, but I think we've made the point that there's a lot going on here, and I think you've also made the point that more things that may have been physical and manual have become digital and automated, and all of them connected together more. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the exposure. So just the pure complexity of it introduces the risk of error, right? The system error in general, human error if they interject where they're not supposed to, or where they're supposed to be there and they don't do their role, their part right. So maybe talk to me a little bit about the exposure and maybe some of the risks that come with that exposure. I don't know, examples of, maybe the San Francisco train, or I think there's one in Dublin as well that had some issues.
So the attack surface is very broad. So we spoke about Wi-Fi or wireless communication that is obvious, why it exposed the system to attacks. You spoke about insider threat. Let's talk about the ones that are very specific for the rail industry. One of them is, I mentioned before that safety is the most important thing for rail. And one principle that is very important in rail is fail-safe mechanism. The fail-safe mechanism is a mechanism that that says that whenever something goes wrong, the train will stop. This is the default. The default mode of a train is to stop, and which is safe. So if there is a process of communication between an element in the infrastructure to the train or to the switch on the tracks, and one of the messages wasn't received well, or something went wrong in the process, the train will stop. This kind of mechanism is perfect for safety, but threat actors might use this mechanism to make a denial of service. So the easiest way to do it is just to inject a command in this system, and then the train will stop. And if you do it every 1 hour, every 1 day, every day, we can imagine what could happen in a city or in an intercity environment. This is and without getting into too much details, this is one of the concerns of the industry, the denial of service attack. It could be also be integrated with ransomware attack, where we don't, so the attackers won't provide you or will stop your train or the customer the trains until they will pay X amount of money. So this is one thing. The second thing that is very unique to the rail is the complexity of the system. It's spread over hundreds and thousands of kilometers. So there are a lot of places where external. So and maybe the third thing is that people are everywhere. By default, people are on the train. People are in the stations. People can be in every place over the tracks. So it's very accessible to people as opposed to other modes of transportation, and they can use this proximity in order to inject not authorized components, and this is in the worst case. But also, since these systems are very broad and very complex, there might be mistakes or misconfiguration of some systems where something was connected to something else. I'll give you a specific example that we saw.
Are you talking out in the field here?
Yeah,
at the actual rail, like between stations. Yeah.
We saw a case where a computer for maintenance, and I mentioned why maintenance is so important, was left out, connected to the system. They just one of the people that maintain it probably forgot that, and it stayed there for years. And this computer had connections, wireless Wi-Fi connection, and it could be a channel, an attack vector for attacking the whole system. And we should remember that these systems are huge, and it's not easy to find those connected assets that weren't meant to be there. So the fact that it's spread over large geographical area expose it to this kind of threats.
So a lot of things in my mind here. First thing I'm thinking is inventory control, access control, and I'm wondering, so there's some basic cybersecurity. I know we talked about being specific, and you probably do need to tailor some of these to the systems, because accessing a SCADA system is different from a Windows machine, obviously. Let's start talking about what rail organizations can do. And I don't know what that landscape looks like. Is it just one big conglomerate that has everything, or is there's probably a supply chain of folks that operate different elements there as well, right?
Yeah. So as in all other industries, also in this industry, there is no silver bullet. So you need to have defense in depth in different layers to protect your system and so on. But let's talk about the important things to do. The third thing that is very important, as you mentioned, is the inventory, asset inventory, to understand what you have in the system, but not what you have in the Excel files from the 80s, when the system was installed, but what practically you have in the system. It's very important. And the best way to do it is by looking at the communication and monitoring the communication in a holistic way, and looking for communication that weren't meant to be there. So I think this is the most important thing, and usually when we speak with a customer, this is the main gap, to understand what you have, because once you understand what you have in the system, you can manage the threats. And once you have this visibility, there are other layers on top of that you probably want to implement. So let's talk about two main things. The first one is threat detection. So it's similar to the IT world and the OT environment. Also in rail, you want to understand what are the threats, but it's more important to understand what to do with these threats, because in the rail industry, there is a lack of talent of cybersecurity. So it's important to understand, not to do only in terms of cybersecurity, but also in terms of operations. Should I stop the train? Should I go physically to the place where the threat is, and what should I do there? Should I download the memory or whatever needed to be done? So this is the second thing. And surprisingly, we experience that most of these systems are like, and I'm speaking about the OT networks, are usually flat systems. So everything can speak with everything. Segmentation is a very important thing. So even if you have an attack on one zone area, you don't want that it will be spread over the other zones. So segmenting the network is a very important task, which is not usually it's not obvious to implement, because the system is already there and you cannot change it and so on. So the way to implement it is by implementing virtual segmentations, or a kind of policy enforcement on zones, and not physical segmentation as should be in a real architecture of cybersecurity.
So I'm wondering, are there things that exist that can prove beneficial? Because clearly the goals for rail are to move things and people between places safely, right? Mm-hmm. And then on time. You don't want your meat spoiling or your milk spoiling. And so those goals exist, but the threats that could impact those goals in the railway system, as you're pointing out, look very different there than they do within the traditional IT world. Are there models like I'll just say CIA, or frameworks like the NIST, CSF, mm-hmm. that can be applied through the lens of the rail objectives, and more specifically the threats that can impact those objectives? And mm-hmm. So maybe talk a little bit about that, and maybe as part of that, is there a rail ISAC? Because I know there are a number of sector ISACs that help share threat information and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a framework. It's called TS 5701. It's a technical specification that will become the global standard of IEC, I believe, that next year. But it's now a technical specification by Senelec. It is derived from, it's based on a standard called 62443, which is common in the industrial environment. And the group that developed this standard, the 5701, took the standard of 62443 and adapted it to the specific needs of the rail industry. And practically, we can see that the rail industry adapted this standard, and it's now part of the requirements of most of the rail customers worldwide. So this is the framework, and it speaks about the way, the best way, or the framework, as you mentioned, to manage the risk that is specifically related to the rail, and we mentioned some example before. With regards to ISAC, yes, there are some ISAC. So there is the ER ISAC, the European ISAC, for sharing information between rail companies, and they share information between them about threats. It can be improved, but at least there is something that started to work, and I'm sure that it's in the process of becoming a very effective mechanism to share information, and to work that the rail companies will work together against, or to protect themselves against, the threat actors. I think also in other places there are initiatives like that, but I think that Europe is the most progressive area in this term of ISAC.
Got it. Love it. Thanks for that. And hopefully you can share links to some of those standards that you mentioned,
Sure.
so we can share that with our audience. And as we wrap, Amir, maybe you talked about Europe being most progressive. In that sense, I'm wondering, are there examples you can share? Things that come to mind are like the fast rail in Japan, or I know Singapore is very sophisticated from a technology perspective. Are there examples where a particular region or type of rail system has actually gone? Because I know there's a lot of legacy stuff here that's now all of a sudden connected and being used in ways that maybe wasn't initially used for. Are there examples where a system has leapfrogged and transformed the way it's designed, architected, built, managed, where safety with cybersecurity built in exists? Or are we not there
yet? So there are some security measures that were integrated over the years, but we should remember that even if you deploy today a rail system whenever you deploy it, it's usually has been developed over the last 10 years, and the architecture was defined 10 years ago. So imagine, we are now in 2022. The architecture was finalized in 2012, where there were back then there was an understanding about cybersecurity and what should be done, but it's not in the same level of understanding as of today. So we can see security measures in those systems, in the new systems. So, for example, in deployments in urban environments and so on, but still there is a gap, because the main concept maybe something that it should be highlighted. The concept of operation, or the trends in operations are meant to be there 30 years or maybe more than that. And the testings and the development testing, assurance and so on takes a lot of time to make sure that all these systems are stable and nothing will change over time. So part of that is that you don't change anything over time, as opposed to cybersecurity, where it's the opposite. It's dynamic. The threat landscape is external to the rail, so it's changing over time. And actually, the way to implement cybersecurity by design is to provide a layer that will allow you to manage the dynamic of the external world without changing the internal system, which should be working over time for years. This is the model that is being implemented now, but still it takes time to be integrated into the rail system. It's not, not in the coming years.
Right. I wonder if there's a lesson there to be learned for IT environments. I don't know. They're very, very dynamic, those environments. I don't know if making them more static is the right answer, but interesting. Well, I could talk to you for hours, Amir. I mean, you've been very insightful, very educational, at least for me. Hopefully all of our listeners picked up some good things here as well. Clearly not everybody works in railway, but a lot of this can be applied to other systems, certainly ICS and OT in general. But I back to the very beginning, I like that there's a specific view of this for this sector and for these systems. My view is that too abstract to serving everybody with solutions to this problem isn't going to directly tackle the problem.
There is no one solution that fits all.
Yeah. So thank you, Amir, for this conversation, and perhaps you'll join us again later as new developments occur, and hopefully we'll find a chance to meet in person sometime. And for everybody listening to this episode, there will be links in the show notes to connect with Amir if you like, and some of the standards that he mentioned, and any other resources he thinks would be useful for you to tap into. So thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Amir, for joining me here on Redefining Cybersecurity on ITSP Magazine.
Thank you very much, Sean. It was great being here, and thank you for all the great questions, and I really enjoyed this session. Thank you very much.
Yep, me too. My pleasure.
Imperva is the cybersecurity leader whose mission is to protect data and all paths to it with a suite of integrated application and data security solutions. Learn more at imperva.com.
HITRUST is a leading data protection standards development and certification organization that strives to safeguard sensitive information and manage information risk for global organizations across all industries and throughout the third-party supply chain. Learn more at hitrustalliance.net. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Redefining Security podcast. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.